Hello guys, and welcome back to Reading Club. So today I'm going to read you Mrs. Patty is Batty, Chapter 9 in the last chapter. Chapter 9, Mrs. Patty's Weird House. Who said that? Michael asked after we heard the weird man's voice. Headless Marvin? That wasn't a person, Ryan said. It was one of those computer voices. Let's get out of here, said Emily, before it's too late. She sounded like she was about to cry, as usual. I wanted to cry, true, but I didn't want to look like a baby. I'm not scared, I said. Me neither, said Michael. We went through the gate and climbed the front steps. You could hardly see anything. Even though I was walking on my tiptoes, the stairs squeaked with every step. I was trying to find the doorbell when I walked into some spider webs. They were all over my face. Yuck! Then I put my foot in something. It was stuck. I couldn't get it out. Ah! I screamed, shaking my foot. You stepped in a pumpkin head, dork, said Andrea. I knew that, I said, finally shaking my foot free. Anytime somebody tells you that you did something dumb, always act like you did it on purpose. That's the first rule of being a kid. Ryan rang the doorbell. It played funeral music. I was hoping that nobody would be home, but soon we heard footsteps and the front door slowly creaked open. I held my breath. It was Mrs. Patty. She was still dressed in her witch costume. At least she didn't have an axe. Ah, she said in a scary voice. My last group of trick-or-treaters is finally here. I love your Halloween decorations, Mrs. Patty, said Andrea, who never misses a chance to brown-nose a grown-up. What decorations? Mrs. Patty said. My house always looks like this. I was really sweating now. We better go, I said. It's way past our bedtimes. Isn't there something you want to say first? Asked Mrs. Patty. Yeah, I said. How does that wart stay on your nose? You're supposed to say trick or treat, said Mrs. Patty. Oh, we all said trick or treat. Before I give you candy, she said, you must pass a test. No, that's not how it goes, said Michael. All we have to do is say trick or treat and you give us candy. Then we leave. That's the way it's supposed to work. Not here, said Mrs. Patty. Do you want the candy or not? Okay, Ryan said. What's the test? If you go trick-or-treating, said Mrs. Patty, and they give out Twix bars at 10 houses and Netzel Crunch bars at 5 houses and Baby Ruth bars at 7 houses, how many candy bars will you have altogether? Hey, that was totally not fair. Mrs. Patty was trying to turn trick-or-treating into math class. All day long we have to learn reading and writing and math. My brain is tired after school. I shouldn't have to do more schoolwork. Mrs. Patty isn't even a math teacher. She's a secretary. 22. Andrea answered right away. You'll have 22 candy bars altogether. That is correct, Mrs. Patty said as she turned around. Come in. The candy is down in the basement. Down in the basement? Why couldn't you just keep a bowl of candy in the front hallway like normal people? Mrs. Patty is batty. I didn't want to go down to Mrs. Patty's basement. I didn't want to see her husband's head in a bucket down there. I figured that Andrea had to be so good at math. If it weren't for her, we could have left. Mrs. Patty opened the door and told us to go down the steps. It was dark. I could hardly see anything except some skulls on the walls with candles inside them. Then we got to the bottom. We had to walk through a winding hallway. There were doors going off in different directions. I didn't see any candies anywhere. We weren't sure which way to go. We're lost, Andrea said. Ouch, Emily said. I hit my head on something. Let's turn around and make a run for it, I said, before it's too late. I'm scared, Michael said. I think I'm going to pee my pants, said Ryan. If I die, Andrea told Emily, you can have my candy. You are two friends, said Emily. You can have my candy if I die. I wish they would both die. I didn't even care if I got their candy or not. We came to the end of the hallway. There was a door. The sign on the door said, Candy near. I put my hand on the doorknob. Don't open that door, Michael said, just as I was about to turn the doorknob. Why not? I asked. In horror movies, Michael explained, whenever somebody opens a door with a crazy guy wearing a mask leaps out with an axe or something. Don't be silly, Ryan said. Open the door, AJ. We'll get the candy and get out of here. I looked at Ryan. Emily looked at Andrea. Michael looked at me. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I had to think fast, so I turned the doorknob. Do you want to know what was behind the door? Well, I'm not going to tell you. Okay, I'll tell you. But you have to read the next chapter, so na-na-na-boo-boo on you. Chapter 10, Marvin the Headless Mummy. Behind the door was a big, dark room, and it was full of kids. I couldn't see much, but I recognized Neil the new kid, and Annette, and some other kids from our class. They were just sitting there like they were waiting for us. It was weird. In the middle of the room was a big trunk. It was like one of those trunks that pirates used to hide their treasures. Michael asked, What's in the... But he never got the chance to finish a sentence because suddenly the top of the trunk started to lift up. A hand was pushing it open. And then this thing got out. It was a mummy with bandages all over its body. But the weird thing was that the mummy didn't have a head. Well, it had a head, but the head wasn't on top of its shoulders like where it was supposed to be. The mummy was holding its head in its hand like a football. Eek! Screamed Emily. It's Marvin, I shouted. Mrs. Patty's dead husband. His ghost came to life. He's the Halloween monster, yelled Ryan. We're gonna die, Michael screamed. I told you we should have made a run for it, I shouted. Mwahaha, said Marvin's head. I had no idea how it was able to talk, but it did. It said, Give me your candy, put everything in the trunk, or else. That head didn't have to ask me twice. I ran over and dumped all the candy from my pillowcase into the trunk. So did Ryan and Michael and Andrea. And Emily and Neil the new kid and Annette. I guess that mummy made all the kids turn over their candy. Because there were about 1,100,000 candy bars in the trunk. Mwahaha, said Marvin's head as Marvin danced around the trunk. It's mine, all mine. Nah, at long last, I have more candy than anyone in town. My life is complete. Mwahaha. That's what you think. We all turned to see who said that. A big guy stepped out of the shadows at the other end of the room. He had a crown on his head and a sword in his hand. It was Mr. Klutz, our school principal. It is I, he said, pointing his sword at Marvin the mummy. King Louis the 14th. In the name of France, surrender that candy. Over my dead body, Marvin said. That was really weird. Everybody knows mummies are dead bodies to begin with. Marvin grabbed the sword off the wall with the hand he wasn't using to hold his own head. Then he and Mr. Klutz started sword fighting, just like in the movies. It was cool. Get him, Mr. Klutz! We all shouted. Kill the Halloween monster! Mr. Klutz and Marvin were dancing around, swinging their swords at each other. Off with your head, Mr. Klutz said, taking a wild swing. His head is already off, somebody yelled. Oh, Mr. Klutz said, let him eat cake. The sword fight was really exciting. Finally, after 1,100,000 minutes, Mr. Klutz knocked the sword out of the Halloween monster's hand. Please have mercy, Marvin said as he fell to his knees. Be gone, Mr. Klutz said. Don't ever steal candy from the children of elementary school again. I'll get you, my pretty, said the Halloween monster as it ran up the stairs. And your little dog, too. I don't even have a dog, said Mr. Klutz. After the Halloween monster ran away, Mrs. Patty came downstairs. Hooray for Mr. Klutz, she yelled. We all started cheering. I have defeated the Halloween monster, said Mr. Klutz. Louis the 14th. We should celebrate, said Mrs. Patty. Let's have a candy party. Yeah, we all yelled. Mr. Klutz and Mrs. Patty tipped over the treasure chest and dumped all the candy on the floor. We were allowed to eat whatever we wanted and take the rest home. I ate so much candy, I thought I was going to throw up. It was the greatest night of my life. After eating all the candy, I couldn't fall asleep for 1,100,000 hours. I just lay there in bed thinking about all the cool stuff that happened. Maybe Mrs. Patty does keep her Halloween decorations up all year round. Maybe her husband, Marvin, really is dead. Maybe she did chop his head off and turn him into a mummy. Maybe that's why he's so mad and he has to run around the house holding his own head. Maybe now that he lost the sword fight to Mr. Klutz, he'll be nicer and stop taking kids' candy. Maybe Marvin and Mrs. Patty will get back together and just be normal people again, even though one of them is dead. And maybe Mrs. Patty will be able to get that wart off her nose, but it won't be easy. So that's the end of this book. I hope you enjoyed my channels of it, and I'll come back later with a new and improved book. Bye, everybody. See you later.